to everybody. Today is Sunday, the 27th day of Sivan, corresponding to the 26th day of June. Please bear with me. I have a couple of dedications to announce. Today's class graciously sponsored by Mr. Ernest Maslaton and family. Le'ilui Nishmat Eliyahu ben Aliza alav shalom. Additionally, today's class dedicated by Mr. Joe Falak and family. Le'ilui Nishmat, his beloved wife, Susan Bad Simcha Aliyah Shalom. Additionally, Bad Nathan or Nathan Yadgar and family, Le'ilui Nishmat, his beloved grandfather, Yosef Ben Salman Alav Shalom. As well by the Levi family, Le'ilui Nishmat, his grandfather, Aslan Yehuda Ben Zimbol Alav Shalom. Additionally, today's class dedicated for the Refuah Shelema of Malka Bat Sheindel, Leah Bat Sara, and Malka Haya Bat Joyce Simcha, Iratzon, that they have a Refuah Shelema among the Holim of Am Israel. Amen. Today's Gemara discusses a couple of fascinating topics. The first topic, I will skip it because it talks about making business with the rabbi. You heard of that? Check the Gemara in Berachot. It tells you what to do when you do business with your rabbi if you want beracha. So for obvious reasons, I'm not going to speak about it. We'll save it for some other time. Okay? You want to check it out? Go to Berachot 34b and you'll see what the Gemara says. Take your rabbi as a partner. All right? Wow. Partnership. But we'll talk about it later. Which it's considered like you did Bikurim in the Bet HaMikdash. I only gave you a free sample. That's it. No more than that. You do with it what you want later. All right?
We can talk later.
We can talk later. Sure.
Berachot
34b. Okay? But I'm going to skip that part. I don't think that I like to speak about it so nobody gets the wrong message. But if you're interested, we'll talk after. Okay? Anyways, not to me, for the synagogue, for everything else that we do. So the Gemara brings now the topic of prophecy. Prophecy in English, it's called, in Hebrew, it's called nevuah. In Jewish history, we had, for example, shofetim, the judges, and then we have the nevi'im. The nevi'im were holy people, holier than the average, that they reached such a level that God approved them to be His messengers in the world. We have a lot of them. And I'm not talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, David, and Shlomo. They were the founding fathers of the Jewish people. All of them were Nevi'im, but not in the scale that we have, for example, Shmuel and Navi, Irmiyah, Yeshaya, Malachi, etc. These are some. You have many more. Yonah and Navi, the famous Yonah from Yom Kippur, Hosea ben Be'eri, Shabbat Shuba, Shabbat HaGadol. In other words, throughout history, the Nevi'im were the liaison between God wanting to deliver a message to the Jewish people. Some of these messages were not happy messages. Some of these messages were reminders that wake up and smell the coffee. It's time to change. You can't continue in this spiritual decline. I will say one more thing, that the prophecy was utilized to deliver a message to Am Israel. If you went to a Navi and you ask him, can I have the Powerball and the Mega Money numbers for this coming week? Forget about it. That never happened. I don't think so. But when it came to warnings, it did happen, to the point that there was a time in history that there was a price tag on Irmiyah Hanavi, Jeremiah. There was a price tag on his head. Why? Because he will come to the Jewish people and say to the Jewish people, gentlemen, you need to shape up or ship out. You don't change. Bet HaMikdash gone. You don't change. Nebuchadnezzar is coming over. You don't change. Tisha B'Av. And regretfully, it did happen. But today's Gemara concentrates more on the good prophecies. The prophecies of Mashiach's arrival. Which we know, this week we're going to be celebrating Be'ezat Hashem, Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. And once we say the word Tammuz, one of the things that pops up in our mind is the 17th of Tammuz. And then something else, the 3 weeks. And then Tisha B'Av. We hope and pray that Be'ezat, and then Selichot, Hazako Baruch. And then Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, and Sukkot. Okay? So we're going into marathonic months to a certain extent. But we all hope that Tisha B'Av will never happen again. And we always hope that the 17th of Tammuz does not happen. And guess what? Those 2 days, how difficult are for the Jewish people from an historical angle and a halachic matter, because now, once the 17th of Tammuz arrives, what happens? No weddings, no music. We start slowly activating a set of rules of halachot to at least feel something. What does it mean not to have the Bet HaMikdash? I ask you a question. Do you feel different having the Bet HaMikdash or not having the Bet HaMikdash? I'm telling you the answer. No difference. Why? Because we never saw it. We have the Emunah. We read the holy books. We listen to the Hachamim. And that's why our Hachamim established some halachot to give us a feeling of that life is not the same without the Bet HaMikdash, like the time of Sefirat HaOmer. Okay, the students of Rabbi Akiva passed away. Hachamim, what do? If we do nothing, and we just have 3 lines of the Talmud, okay, haram. Hachamim say, what haram? They died because they failed to respect each other. That means that if you think for a moment that interacting with people, it's secondary to serving God, you're making a mega mistake. Ben Adam lamakom and Ben Adam lahavero, godly relationship and interpersonal relationship are equal. You cannot say, no, I like to serve God better and I like to mistreat my friend. God says, you know what? Tut ben mishkan toivis. That wasn't in Arabic. You know what I just said? Do me no favors, God says. You think that I'm happy because you're good with me, but you're hurting my child? And that's why Hachamim established the laws of mourning during Omer. And people don't get married, right? During the Omer. And we don't listen to music during the Omer. Because that's the minimum we can do to come to the realization, oh, something did happen. So comes the Gemara, and it says a couple of interesting opinions, and whatever we are able to cover today in this Gemara, it's all benefit. So the Gemara begins. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, all the prophecies of the Nevi'im, liyemot ha-Mashiach, they refer to the time of Mashiach's arrival. One of the non-negotiable principles of Emunah in Am Israel is the belief in Mashiach's arrival. That's what we say in the 13 principles of faith from the Rambam, Ahakelo bechol yom sheyavo. I will await for his arrival in any day. That's why the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat talks about a few questions, right? Famous questions. I'm sure you know these questions, but I repeat them to myself so I remember. The 4 questions that a person will be asked after 120. One was, were you honest in your business dealings? Did you set up fixed time to learn Torah? Did you educate your children in the ways of Torah? And did you hope for Mashiach's arrival? Tzipita leyeshua. What does it mean, did you hope for Mashiach's arrival? Short answer, if you live in your mind, maybe today is a great day for Mashiach to come. If you ask me, today is a superb day for Mashiach to come. Sunday, beautiful sunny day, the 27th day of Sivan, that Zach, pure. The 26th of June, 26, Yot Kev Vav Kev. So the day, you see, now we gave you a whole derasha just on the date. Don't they say about the Hafetz Haim and many other great tzaddikim that they used to have, right, behind the door of their bedroom, a suit. So in the event that Mashiach comes in the middle of the night, they're not going to greet Mashiach in pajamas. They had a special Shabbat suit in order to welcome Mashiach. Maybe it's a good idea to have a nice Shabbat suit ready, and Mashiach comes, you dress nice, and you come. Can you imagine greeting Mashiach with shorts? Has v'shalom. Okay, he's going to say, who allow you to wear shorts? Has v'shalom, don't take it personal. Okay, thank God for the virtual audience of Torah. Nobody's wearing shorts here. The Kahal knows, Baruch Hashem, kavod bet HaKnesset, that's a big zechut. I tell you why. Because God says, you want me to build the Bet HaMikdash? Show me how you handle the Bet HaKnesset. The more we honor the Bet HaKnesset, the faster Mashiach comes. It's a pasuk in Yehezkel. Vayehi lahem lemikdash me'at. The synagogue becomes a small Bet HaMikdash. Show me, and I give you. Now, Isaac, you want to hire a stockbroker to manage your funds. Are you going to give him for the first time $100,000? No. Okay? I don't know what that looks like, but 6 figures. Okay, what are you going to do first? I'm going to give you 10,000. Let's see. Again, we're not putting all the blame on the stockbroker. Okay? But the stockbroker needs to have also certain knowledge and understanding of how the system works. And again, I'm not telling you to invest in the stock market. I think the stock market needs the Hiyat HaMetim, right? But it could be a good time because it's low. Speak to the accountant on that. He'll tell you all about it. Okay? For example, or an advisor to tell you yes, no, etc. But the Gemara writes and it says that Limota Mashiach Bilbad. I think that is important to quote the Rambam, Maimonides, at the end of the Yad HaZakah, in the Laws of Kings, the last 2 chapters, I believe, he discussed Mashiach's arrival. Now, if you ask me who Mashiach is, I don't know. I don't know, and I don't think nobody knows. Okay, even Mashiach himself may not know that he is Mashiach. No, we don't know. So we're not going to even talk about it. But what's going to happen when Mashiach comes? Rule number 1, the Rambam says, Olam keminhago holech. The world will continue its natural course. In other words, it's going to be a transition. Because the transition, as we said a long time ago, of the benefit of Mashiach's arrival, if we think for a moment that Mashiach will only benefit the Jewish people, it's not accurate, that statement. The whole world will benefit from Mashiach's arrival. Obviously, for the Jewish nation, it will be a couple of scenarios. One of them is kibbutz galuyot, gathering of the people from the 4 corners of the world. But we really don't know what that means. Does it mean that we need to move to Israel? What about the opinion that says that Yerushalayim will be the size of the land of Israel, and the land of Israel will be the world? So you don't have to move when Mashiach comes. I don't know that answer, but there is an opinion who says this. What about cooking? Are you going to have to cook when Mashiach comes? Maybe in the first few days, yes. But eventually the Rambam says, "Ve'ayu ma'adanim metzuim ka'afar." Like dust is available on the floor, on the ground, also delicacies will be available for the people. By the way, you already have this today. Uber Eats. Press a button. You like it? And this is not a promotion for Uber Eats. It can be DoorDash, could be Postmate, whatever system is available. Nobody paid promotional fees to be Instacart, kosher cart, whatever you want to call it. What do? You don't cook. You just press a couple of buttons and the food is delivered to you. So now I'm going to make it better for you. Delivered to you without paying.
Today's preview.
Huh?
Today's preview.
This is a sneak preview of what we have today. Can you imagine? Direct flights to Israel. You have to go to Europe and to New York, straight from Miami to Israel. Unbelievable. What do you think that's happening?
Yeah.
So Mashiach comes. How are we going to get to Israel? I want a direct flight. I don't want a stopover. Let's go further. What about, and by the way, I think it's important for me to say this, why emphasis is made on food? The ladies are going to love this because there is no more cooking. Okay? There is no more cooking. And although many husbands do cook, but I think that the ladies are the queens of the home and they're in charge of the cooking as well. But why cooking today? It takes so much effort. And why when Mashiach comes, cooking will be obsolete? Short answer. We need to know that the avon of Adam and Hava in the beginning of creation, it was a sin committed through food. So if the sin is committed through food, the tikkun needs to be made through food. And that's why food requires preparation. The more the food requires preparation, the more tikkun. You understand the relationship? Now Mashiach comes. What does it mean? That the tikkun of Adam and Hava was made. Once the tikkun is made, food is ready. You don't have to work anymore. It's great.
Grows on trees.
Yes, the Gemara writes, Atida Eres Israel, Leotzi Geluskao to Klimitat. Will come a time in history, you're going to talk to your wife, what are we going to have for breakfast today? Okay, I like scrambled eggs, shakshuka, fruits, cheese. Open the door, it will be there for you. I know that it sounds like a magic movie, fantasy, but according to the holy books and according to the Gemara, that's what's going to happen. Didn't we learn on Friday that in the zechut of having sisit in your body, you qualify to have extra help, right? When Mashiach comes, the 2,800 slaves, the way the Gemara writes in Shabbat, okay, Hazaku Baruch. How did you get that? And not W-2, not 1099, no payroll. How did you qualify for that? Suddenly you have it and your friend doesn't have it. How did you do? Who do you know? Oh, me. I was wearing sisit during the time of Galut. God says, you remember me, I'll remember you. Goes further. Gemara says in the name of Shmuel, and it says, En ben olam hazeh limot ha-Mashiach, ela she'ivud malchuyot bilbad. Literally it means, one of the basic difference will be that we no longer will be subjugated to the government. What does it mean, the government? God forbid. This is not a statement against any government, correct? But it means that the Jewish people will have the freedom to serve Hashem without roadblocks. And today, let's be honest here, we have roadblocks, correct? Not every building has a Shabbat elevator. Not every condominium has an Iruf. Not every building allows you to build a sukkah. Who is putting these roadblocks? The governing bodies. It says when Mashiach comes, Yehudim and Goim will have this Emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I've only brought these examples because these are easy examples to relate to. Remember, we needed to do the elevator in your building? How many steps and obstacles for years, 20 years, we needed to overcome. And we needed to pay for it. They didn't pay. And Baruch Hashem, it took a very long time to get that approved. Okay? And many other things. For example, I'll skip it better. Don't ask me about taxes. I cannot answer you that question. But probably if you read this Gemara, it seems that the government will help Am Israel, will not issue rules that go against the foundations of our Torah in Hashem, which today, to a certain extent, we are seeing a change. In some cases, a very positive change, but in some cases, a very negative situation. What about poverty? Will poverty exist when Mashiach comes, or automatically poverty will go into retirement mode and everybody will be successful? Interesting enough, it's a mahloket in the Gemara. Shmuel brings a verse that says, Ki lo ihdal evyon mikerev haaretz. Always you'll have the givers and the receivers. You're going to have the wealthy and the needy. Comes Rabbi Yohanan and it says, no. There is another pasuk that says completely the opposite. I'll read you the pasuk that comes from Zechariah HaNavi. The pasuk says, listen to the Hebrew words. Belo ihye kena'ani od bebet Hashem bayom ahu. Literally means, it will not be a Canaanite in the house of the Almighty in that day. Hold on a minute. What Rabbi Yohanan is saying? That the nation of Canaan will not be around when Mashiach comes? What's the novelty of that? The nation of Canaan was evicted from Israel in the time of Yoshua bin Nun. We say in the Vaybarach David, HaKenaani. So what pasuk is bringing Rabbi Yohanan from Zechariah HaNavi? Short answer, Kenaani means kan en ani. No poverty. And I like this opinion. Why? Because if food will be available like the dust, and garments will be ready, and peace will run the world, and one of the transitions, I must say this, I don't think I said it now, I may have said it in the earlier class, but in the man, in the parasha of the man, right? The food, the manna, the food from heaven. What happened when the man came down? You know that till today we have manna. There are two levels of man. The simple level is the parnasah that Hashem sends us. That's the manna. But there is the real man that we're going to eat when Mashiach comes. And that man, if I recall something that I read a while back, that man will activate the transition in our mind, in our spirit, between exile and the time of Mashiach's arrival. Now, where does it say that? In the parasha of the man. It's a pasuk. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Aharon, Kach sinsenet ahad. I want you to take a flask a small container of the Omer, of the man. That's something that we're going to need when Mashiach comes. Because imagine yourself, you suddenly hear the shofar. We can have all types of reactions. Emotions will be obviously, but are we going to be happy that Mashiach came? Hopefully, yes. But maybe some people may say, tell him come tomorrow.
Right.
I have something to do. I have a deal. I got to finish. I have a plane to catch. You know, there are people who really don't understand. And that's why the Pasuk in Yeshaya says it all. And it says, you know what's going to be the universal benefit for Mashiach's arrival? That people will change their mind. Many people may say now, Uli, if Mashiach comes, I cannot do this, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. I have to become like the rabbi. I'm going to be a rabbi, black and white, suit and tie every day. Relax. I don't think Mashiach's uniform is going to be suit and tie. Maybe not tie when Mashiach comes, actually, you know. Maybe you'll be more relaxed, more chill out, as they say. But many people say, forget about it. You're telling me that Mashiach coming, I'm going to be learning Torah all day? I'm going to be praying all day? So the Pasuk in Yeshaya says that one of the ultimate benefits of Mashiach's arrival, and this is where he says that the change of the benefit of Mashiach's arrival, it will be universal for all mankind, not only for the Jewish people. Umali'ah ha'aretz de'at Hashem kamayim layam mechasim. In English it means that the entire population, the entire earth will be filled with God's knowledge and awareness like the water covers the ocean. Today, the world is in chaos. Are we in agreement with that?
Yes.
We all agree? At every level. You tell me the level? Morality, finances, inflation, communism, terrorism, war, abortion, all the craziness that's happening, shootings, God forbid, everything, guns, and everything else that's happening in the world. Regretfully, if we need to do to write a report card about the world, I think that we're going to get a C minus or a D or even an F in some areas. So how do we reverse that? Honestly speaking, I don't have the solution. I don't have the solution. But I can tell you, somebody said to me the other day, Rabbi, I want to change the world. Can you help me? He says, yes. He says, I have the solution. You don't even need me for that. You can do it by yourself. He got all excited. I said, what do I need to do? I said, change yourself. Change yourself. Because good attracts good. Like I said, we learned on yesterday, in one of the minyanim, I mentioned from this parasha that we read yesterday, Shelach Lecha, the famous Gemara that says that the Jewish people cried when they heard the report of the spies. God says, you cry for no reason, I'll give you a reason to cry. From here, our rabbi said, if negativity, if crying can attract more crying, positive thinking and gratitude can attract goodness. So if I start changing myself, that's my mission. Be all you can be. That's a Torah slogan. The army borrowed it from the Torah. Be all you can be is God saying to us, you try. As we learned yesterday in the afternoon class, remember I quoted the pasuk from Shlomo HaMelech, and it says, get ready to work, get ready to war, get ready for whatever you need to do. But remember that God will guide you. La Shema Yeshua, the salvation comes from the Pasuk writes, Lemishmeret ledorotechem. Says we're going to have this transition. Pre-Mashiach's arrival, Mashiach's arrival. How are we going to do it? According to the holy books, we're going to sample the man. The man will be the vitamin, okay? The vitamin that will create this powerful switch that we're going to change in our Emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even the way we talk, there is a pasuk that says, "Az efoch el kol ha'amim besafa berura u'ben'ima likro kulam b'shem Hashem." I believe that this also comes from Zechariah. I'm not sure, but I think so. But the meaning of that verse means, when Mashiach comes, Hashem will change all the languages of the world to a uniform and unified language, clear language, and everyone will call the name of the Almighty. What this pasuk means? Two things. We need to go back to history. The beginning of Bereshit, till the Tower of Babel fiasco. What was the language? Lashon HaKodesh, the Hebrew language of the Torah. That what was the world spoke then, until came the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel was the first time in history that languages were brought down to the world. And since then till today, languages is part of the world life. You speak English, you speak Spanish, you speak Arabic, you speak Bukharian, you speak Russian, you speak Flemish. You can speak all languages that you have, and that creates separation to a certain extent. And if you learn that language, it can create to a certain extent unity. So the pasuk says, we're going to reset the button, and we're going to speak all the Hebrew language of the Torah, including Goyim, and we all are going to serve Hashem. In different ways, perhaps, because there is a whole debate in the Talmud, if when Mashiach comes, the mitzvot will remain activated, or the mitzvot will take a step back. Because the mitzvot were created to a certain extent, strengthen and maintaining our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But once Mashiach comes, the world is a whole different ballgame. But we wait till Mashiach comes. That's why the Gemara writes that holidays, most of them will be gone, with the exception of Hanukkah and Purim. Tisha B'Av will be a day of holiday. Sure. Now what does that mean? I don't know. Wait till Mashiach comes, and he's going to be able to answer all your questions. Don't ask me. If you ask me, I will tell you tiku, the way the Gemara says. Tishvi etares kushiot be'avayot. How many times the Gemara gets in a deadlock? You have opinion, yes, no. Yes, no. No, yes. Yes, no. The Gemara says, you know what? Forget about it. Tiku. We're going to put this question on the suspense file. When Mashiach comes, we'll get all the answers. Now, there is another pasuk. There is another rather message from the Gemara, and talks about to do teshuvah. No one can deny that in the world today, the world of outreach, kiruv, it's alive. What does that mean? 100 years ago, who heard of the word kiruv? No one. 50 years post-Holocaust, the only kiruv movement was Bet Chabad, Chabad Lubavitch. No one else. It's not a kiruv movement. It's a pro-Zionistic movement. It's different. But we're not talking about any groups, because today, thank God, there are many groups. you have Or Sameach, Esha Torah, Binyan Olam, Olami, Menorah. I don't even know the name. Yes, you have the JBX Brooklyn. You have Ornava, Rabbi Wallerstein, Alav Shalom, and many wonderful, wonderful programs of Kiruv. Esha Torah, of course. Okay, but what prompted all this revolution? Short answer: assimilation. After the Holocaust, God forbid, it was a huge blow against the Jewish people. But as the years went by, the Holocaust remained. Maybe not with the atrocities committed back then, but the silent Holocaust, which is what? Assimilation. God forbid. Thank God we are in an environment, Baruch Hashem, that we are connected to synagogues, to Torah, to rabbis, to family, to good people. But I ask you a question. Can everyone outside of the holy confinement of the Safra Synagogue can say the same thing? And I say Safra Synagogue because we are here. But it could be Sha'arei Zion, could be Dil, could be Batya, could be Ahava Ve'ahva, could be Ohel Simcha, whatever shul you go to, wherever you live.
Even we are not vaccinated without. I mean,
even in the synagogue, you still need protection. But at least we are connected to the tank of oxygen. I come to the shul, you come to the shul. Just by you and I coming to the shul, we support each other. We learn together, we eat together, we celebrate together. We do a lot of things that alone, it activates not only unity, but a sense of connection. But what about the Jews, regretfully, that are not connected, that are not affiliated? And they look at us like Martians. That's how they look at us. Look at these guys, 104 degrees, and they wear a suit and a tie walking. And they walk like the world is in vacation mode. It's a Kiddush Hashem. Okay? And that's why, as the years post the Holocaust became activated, that's why the world of Kiruv needs to be activated. Because us here, we're not doing much for the outside. We don't do a direct marketing. And different communities have different strategies. Okay? And this is not to minimize any community in particular. In the Sephardic world, there is one style. In the Ashkenazic world, there is another style. In the Hasidic world, there is another style. There are certain synagogues that the synagogues are built out of kiruv, meaning to say all the participants are non-affiliated. Each synagogue has its own, but as I said in the earlier class today, there are two levels of kiruv. Kiruv rehokim, kiruv kerovim. Kiruv rehokim literally means the outreach to the outside. Like I said on Thursday or Friday, I told you about my nephew. There is a rabbi, right, in UC Davis in California, 6 hours of Los Angeles away, and he's telling me the stories of what he has to deal with, the anti-Jew, anti-Israeli, anti-American mindset that students are brainwashed from public schools. Prior to coming to college, they already come with a preset mind, which is terrible. So I asked him, how do you survive? How do you live there? I don't think that any of us will be able to live. He gave me words that penetrated to my heart. He says, I don't see the mind, I see the neshama. I'm working with the neshama. So I asked him, what do you do if you're telling me that from the 3,000 Jews that are in campus, 90% are anti-Israel and anti-Jewish. He says, you know what I do? I invite them to my home for a Shabbat meal, for a Hanukkah party, for Purim. I give them coffee and bagels, free coffee and bagels, and then they throw in a few words of Torah. He says, what you have here, he tells me, for you Mashiach already came. You have a synagogue, you have minyan 7 days a week, you have a variety of kosher restaurants, kosher supermarket, Shabbat elevator, Eruv. Yani life is comfortable. When they are if they are able to make a minyan, it's already a miracle. Shabbat, they organize a minyan. He needs to walk almost an hour to a different town. Can you imagine? I don't think that any of us will survive in such a hostile type of environment. Hostile, not God forbid in a physical, but in the mindset. And he says sometimes the conversations become philosophical and it's dangerous. But when you see Neshamot, which was something that happened in the time of the Baal Shem Tov, what happened in the time of the Baal Shem Tov? What did the Baal Shem Tov do different that was not done before? The Baal Shem Tov, just to give a little background, lived in a chapter of history that was very dark and very painful. He came to the world after the decrees of Europe, 1648, 1649. The time of the Cossacks, that they will kill Jewish people left and right, without nobody saying a word, without the government lifting a finger. And through this, they murder hundreds of thousands of Jewish people. Before that was the Inquisition. Before that was the Crusades, the eviction from England, and eventually going to Israel, which this week I read in the book that deals with the Jewish calendar. It says that last week, I don't remember which day in history, going back 700 years, the kingdom of the Mamelukes, there was such a kingdom back then, evicted the Crusaders from Israel. Interesting. Okay, the Crusaders came all the way from England through Europe, and guess what? Any town they visited, they planted killings, Jewish blood. So Europe has plenty of Jewish blood spilled all over. Probably more than the Middle East. Probably more than the Middle East, at least in the modern era. Just in these three scenarios, Crusades, Holocaust, Inquisition, Cossacks, probably 15 million Jewish people were removed from the world through killing, and 6 million of the Holocaust. So what happens then? The Baal Shem Tov needs to lift the spirit of the people. And who was the target audience of the Baal Shem Tov? Not the Hachamim, not those who learned Torah, but the simple Jew. Because regretfully, there was a period after the tragedy of the Cossacks that Judaism in Europe split in half. Half connected and half simple. Not disconnected, simple. Simple. To the point that unfortunately they had synagogues for those that learned Torah and those that were simple. That means worth did not learn Torah. And they will not marry to each other because they consider someone who doesn't learn Torah secondary. And this is something that God does not like. if you think that because you learn Torah, you can ignore or mistreat someone who doesn't learn Torah, we already saw the students of Rabbi Akiva. Both of them were learners of Torah. All of them were learners of Torah, but they failed to respect each other. So what did the Baal Shem Tov do, basically? He started to invest in the simple Yehudi, in a simple Jew, in the simple Jew. Kiruv. So if you want to know, Kiruv was back the Baal Shem Tov. But I ask you another question now. Who was the first person involved in Kiruv in history?
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Abraham and Sara. Moshe Rabbeinu was the teacher. Abraham and Sara, the Pasuk writes, Et nefesh asher asu beharan. They went to a place called Haran. Why Haran was called Haran? In the word Haran, there is an Arabic word that is not a nice word. Agree? In Hebrew, Haran means Haron Apo Shel Makom. This city will trigger God's anger. That was the name of the city. Why? Because of the behavior of mankind. That's it. So Dafka, specifically there, Abraham says, Et nefesh, the people are involved in idolatry out of ignorance. They don't know better. That's how they were raised. That's the product of the environment. You know what? Let me teach them different. And the Pasuk says, the souls that they created in Haran, Rashi says, Abraham mekarev et ha'anashim, Sara mekarevet et ha'nashim. Abraham will do outreach to men, and Sarah will do outreach to ladies. And that was the first couple in history that was involved. So after the Holocaust, fast forward, that there was a decline to the Jewish people, not only emotionally and physically, but even spiritually, that many people departed from the Torah till today. But today, Baruch Hashem, there is Kiruv. Tahiyat HaMetim and Kiruv is exactly the same thing. Because what the Pasuk says about Tahiyat HaMetim, the Gemara writes that a person that is not connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Nikra Met. You are physically alive. But how do you maintain your godliness? What do you do to keep your godliness alive? The more we do, the stronger our life is. And if God forbid the person doesn't do anything, even though husband and wife may be Jewish, but if there is no community connection, or there is no any type of observance of Torah, Mitzvot, Ma'asim Tovim, what can we expect for the next generation? Nothing. Because the children were not exposed to anything that connects them to the past. We are the continuous link from the time of Abraham Avinu. And every generation has its challenges. Let's clarify, okay? Maybe the challenge 50 years ago was to be able to work and not having to desecrate Shabbat, which was one of the biggest challenges after the Holocaust. If a person wanted to work for a company and the person will ask not to work on Shabbat, you know what they told the person? Don't come back on Sunday. True. Today is different. Today there are federal laws that they must respect your Shabbat and holiday observance. But it took 70 years. And how many people were lost and generations were lost? And that's why, to conclude with a fascinating pasuk from Malachi, at the end of the Nevi'im, we find the pasuk about Eliyahu Navi and Mashiach's arrival. The pasuk writes, "Hine anochi sholeach lachem et Eliyahu Navi." I'm hereby sending you Eliyahu the prophet, lifnei bo yom Hashem hagadol v'hanora, before the arrival of the great and awesome day. And what's the next pasuk? Beheshiv lebavot al banim, belev banim al avotam. When you see the teshuvah movement waking up in the world, like children help the parents to do teshuvah, and parents help the children to do teshuvah, be ready, because we are in Mashiach mode. And this is what's happening today. People realize the importance of community affiliation. You can't survive, correct, without being connected. You can't live by yourself and remaining connected to God to the fullest. Sure, some connection will always exist. That's why Publix and Winn-Dixie and Trader Joe's, they sell matzot before Pesach. Why they sell matzah? Because even those who may not celebrate Shavuot, right, or Sukkot, but Pesach, they celebrate. So there is somehow some type of connection. But you can't connect your God with God only from Pesach to Pesach. What do you do the rest of the year? And that has a chain, a domino effect. Your connection to the community, it influences who your kids hang around with and the schooling that you send them. If God forbid a child goes to public school, right? People, Baruch Hashem, come to the realization, the spiritual dangers of public school. You know, it has an effect also. You develop friendship, you develop relationship, you develop situations, and parents don't know really what to do. We can go further in this topic, but I think that my last question to you will be is, you hear the shofar of Mashiach. What is the first thing you do?
Get dressed.
Okay? Make sure to get dressed. And then what do you do after? My suggestion is, come to the synagogue. This is the pickup address. Pickup address, Mashiach comes, the synagogue. The Gemara says that when Mashiach comes, the synagogues of the world and the Torah places of the world will combine and will be transferred over to Israel to become the perimeter walls of the Bet HaMikdash. What that really means, I don't know. But I heard this from a great rabbi from Israel who said in a class, Mashiach comes, get dressed and come to the synagogue. Stick around. Because probably Mashiach comes and he's going to come to the rabbi. I said, Rabbi, Shalom Aleichem. I'm going to talk to him. I will ask him, what took you so long to come? I'm sure that we're not going to ask such a question. But he may ask, everybody that is here, who came every day? You came every day? First flight to Israel. Go. No passport neither. No CPR. No PCR. No PCR. No vaccination card. Go. You came once a week? Wait. We'll call you.
Stand by.
That's what the great rabbi said. So the more we are connected, the more we expedite. And that's why the Gemara asks, Tzipita le-Yeshua, did you hope for the redemption in your days? Comes the Gaon of Vilna. and adds a fifth question. What is the fifth question? Himlachta et havercha. Did you crown your friend? How did you treat your friend? Like a king or like a shmate? Himlachta is from Lashon Melech. How did you speak to your friend? Respectful, with derech eretz, with kavod? That's a tough question to answer. But it's good to open up our eyes and to understand that every action causes a reaction, the way the Ben Ish Chai writes in Perashat Kitetze. He says from the Pasuk, Hashem silecha al yad yeminecha. He says, the action of the person is like a shadow. If I move my hand like this, the shadow mimics what I do. If I open, opens. If I close, close. If I move, it moves. He says every action causes a reaction. For good or for better. Okay, my good friends? Tizkera mitzvot to all of the generous sponsors of today's class. We can say Kaddish. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Hananiah ben Akashia Omer.